Welcome to the Tech Savvy Professor podcast, which features two faculty members who love tech and love making it part of their work. I'm Marty Gensius, a program coordinator, I guess. I lost the flip of the coin. I'm the program coordinator at Kent State University for the master's program there. It's a great program, but they made a big mistake by putting me in charge of it.
And I'm Eric Perry. I am faculty and program director at Divine Mercy University.
So it's been a while. We've had conflicts here and there to be able to get together. And, you know, I've got some, we can talk about this. I've got some traveling coming up, so we can figure that out in terms of our schedule. How have you been doing at this point in the summer?
Good. I mean, things have been a little crazy, kids and running and health things and stuff going on. But, you know, I'm kind of excited. We're going to take a trip to Rehoboth here in a couple of weeks, which will be nice, get to the beach, and kind of looking forward to that little break.
Have you been to Rehoboth before?
Yeah, this will be, I think, our third time going out there.
Yeah. I used to live in Ocean City, Maryland, and worked at a radio station there for, 18 months, maybe 2 years. And, you know, when the season hits, and you'll be in the middle of the season, so it will be crazy traffic. If you drive down to Ocean City, it will be nuts. And then we wait for post-Labor Day, where all the traffic dies down and then the beaches become, and the traffic becomes calm again. I just remember escaping to Rehoboth whenever I wanted to get out of the, all the splendor that beach communities have, t-shirt shops, fireworks shops, and things like that. Go up to Rehoboth and get a little quiet. So
yeah, it tends to be less busy. Yeah.
I hope you enjoy that, and your family too enjoy that. That's important to do. I myself will be heading to Chicago in a week or so to take 5 days to spend time with family and to take in one, maybe two Cubs games at Wrigley. And I'm looking forward to that. I plan to shut things off. I plan to have things in a place where when I come back, they will get done or they've been done before I leave. So, well, today we're going to talk about AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality. And I remember you saying, this I like this topic. So I said, okay, we'll do this topic. And then we had a conversation before the show, and I started looking at the show notes, and it's like, I don't do this. So you're excited about it. I hope you're not depending on me to fulfill all your potential fantasies of what it can do, because it's limited. But we can talk a little bit about AR and VR today. And for faculty who have used it or dipped into it, there's some cool stuff that you can do with it. Very cool stuff. It's sometimes a stretch in terms of turning it from entertainment to educational value. And I've had some experiences where it seemed like it was very meaningful to the students that I had to use it, not just because of the oh wow effect, but also because they were able to do some stuff. Suggestion is you start small and accessible. You know, the two big folks in the field right now are the Meta 3 and the Apple Vision Pro. And the Meta 3 is a $500 device. I think if you get the Meta 3e, it's a $400 device. Frankly, I have both the 3 and the 3e. I can't tell much discernible difference between the 3 and the 3e. In terms of use and play, there's a little bit of loss in resolution or clarity in the E, but frankly, it's the same kind of functional process as you can. The Vision Pro is just amazing, but it's $3,500 worth of amazing. But there are smaller and accessible ways that you can start. For example, there are mobile AR apps, which are kind of fun. And I think even like Pokemon, you can do AR with Pokemon. Eric, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, so I've seen it. I haven't played it, but I know there's, I think, a couple of versions of Pokemon that you can get that are AR. And I don't know, for those probably listening to us now, they're probably already aware of the difference between AR and VR, but just in case, augmented
Yeah.
reality is you kind of still see what's in front of you, and there's images, representations, things, objects that you can interact with within your natural environment. VR is more encompassing. That's the virtual reality. So you're actually seeing a virtual representation of the world around you, just in case.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good to make that designation. Apps or devices like Meta and Apple Vision Pro do both in a sense, AR and VR.
Mm-hmm.
And you have what they call pass through, which means when you're doing AR and you can see the rest of what's in your living room or wherever you're using it, it allows you to kind of be aware of your environment. There are other situations where VR, where you're totally immersed, that you can't tell if you're going to walk into a chair or a
Mm-hmm.
table or something like that. But start small, start accessible. There are mobile AR apps. There is one actually that counselors, I don't want to say counselors use, but clients use, called Replica with a K. And Replica creates an avatar that becomes your social buddy. And people are using it clients are using it to have a counseling or relationship with a AR object. I signed up for it a couple of years ago when I was ready to do a presentation on this at ACA. And the app costs, I don't know, $16 a month. So I had it for a couple of months. But I made my buddy, and my buddy looked nothing like me because I couldn't age the buddy to be my age. I couldn't weight the buddy to make my weight. It was a very, very nice, young looking buddy. I interacted with it a little bit and did some video capture of it standing and talking. I had it talk to the members of ACA as part of the demonstration that I did with it. And they talked about my buddy, which I think was called Taj, T-A-J, T-A-J. My buddy spoke about how important counselors are in this world to the ACA group. And it was freaky frightening. There have been a couple of good articles, and I'll see if I can find this, where people have developed particular relationships with these. One of them using Replica. There are a couple of other these services where people have developed pretty deep relationships with these AR objects. But yeah, it's a cell phone. That's all you need to be able to start this process. You want kind of hands-on practice with it or hands-on experience with it. There are some environments that simulate real world scenarios for kind of skill building that you can do without risk. And there's also, I think Meta does this well. I think Apple's starting to do this well, but there's also exercise and all sorts of like boxing practice that you can do
Mm-hmm.
with the AR VR headset. And so that's interesting in terms of that. Again, thinking of that in terms of education, I'm not so sure. There are immersive environments that you can go to. Apple notoriously has one called Walk with the Dinosaurs, and it takes you into a dinosaur environment. Apple also has a series of spatial videos that it puts out, and it puts out a new one like every month. And it's, the Balloon Fest in Turkey. It's the attempt to beat the speed record driving up to Pikes Peak. So there are some really quality demonstrations of the video, but it also adds some cultural pieces. So as a teacher, you'd kind of have to look at it and go, does this fit with my class? Is there things that we can talk about? If I'm doing a class on physics and speed, do I use this video for students to have to figure out the equations that go with this? If I'm doing something on culture, are there immersive videos and places that I can go that demonstrate culture? You really kind of have to, and almost too much. There's not enough resources out there where you can just say, I'm teaching this class on this. Let me go find what I can do in VR or AR
Mm-hmm.
with it. It's just not there yet. So you almost have to bend what's out there to fit with whatever lesson you're going to be teaching. And it's not going to be something that you would do every class, but it would be something that you'd do as an example.
Yeah, I came across a couple of virtual field trips, and there's opportunities to do some of those, which I think would be interesting to some degree to see different places, different areas. I think VR has come a good way, but the integration in education feels like it's a little slower. And I think, affordability and accessibility has definitely gotten better. So that's something that's helping. I think about tools like Skill Setter and kind of these demonstration tools that we use often in counselor education. I think VR and AI are going to be kind of the next logical step toward counselor training that allows for some of that skills practice and really to feel immersed in those types of environments. So I've actually been contacted by a couple of startups who are working on AR, VR tools. And I did a demo a couple months ago interacting with an AI client and getting feedback from a system. So it's coming along.
Yeah, we talk about AR, VR, but when you integrate it with I mean, you could have a AI client generated without too much problem.
Mhm.
It wouldn't necessitate having a headset or 3D experience. It could be done in a 2D experience.
Sure.
I did a demonstration for ASGW, and it was using ChatGPT, the AI piece, to create a group session. And the group session had me as the counselor, past me as a client, future me as a client, and current me as a client in a group setting. And I put some parameters into it and suggested that these are the issues that past me was dealing with. These are the issues that future me might be dealing with. These are the issues that current me might be dealing with. And I want to approach it from this particular theoretical orientation. And I said, everybody in the group has to speak at least 6 pieces during it. And it generated a group session that was really frighteningly pretty good, but it would be, again, the idea of using AI to create simulations. Gets out of the AR, VR sphere, but still the idea that you can generate these types of simulations that way if you like to. And then taking that and putting it into a system where it actually creates AR characters. I mean, ones that can be seen on screen instead of text is another step. And that's where you get into possible AR kinds of interfaces. I did a demonstration. I worked with international teachers, and we would generally have 20 or so teachers come from 16 different countries. And we would have a day where we would talk about AR and VR because we teach a tech class for them every week. And so it meant the instructor and me, I was in there kind of helping out, would bring our metas in because we had meta headsets. And then I brought my Apple Vision Pro in when that was released for the group. And one of the things that was most meaningful was, and this was with Meta, I think you could probably do it with Vision Pro at this point. But with Meta, they went on, and so you got people from Senegal, you've got people from from Poland, you've got people from Lithuania, and they went on Google Maps, and there is a app that you can do that with through Meta that will allow you to kind of expand the map till you get to the area that you want. And they could go into their home country and go and walk down the streets using Google Maps in an area that was very familiar to them. Now, what we did was we took that and did the output and did the projection up so they could then basically take all of their colleagues to their hometown and talk about it. And they got a experience getting a guided tour around where the speaker grew up in and what their experience was in the area. So that was so cool because there was a couple of things going on. I think many of the teachers who were here for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, we had groups that were up to 16, 15 weeks with us.
Mhm.
were getting homesick. And so this gave them an opportunity to kind of drop into the visual space that was their home. And it also, there was some pride in there. They were able to kind of show, this is, you know me here, but you don't know me there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool to see that happen with the class. So even if you're teaching, if you're not a college faculty member, but if you're a history teacher or a social studies teacher or a geography teacher, something like VR AR headset would be very cool because you can take your students on virtual field trips to various places around the globe as you're trying to describe, earthquakes in Turkey. Well, let's go to that area in Turkey where there's a fault and let's look at the conditions and such. So
yeah, I imagine that would be an interesting experience. I was just thinking about people I've told about where I grew up or where my family's from, and could actually show them. Most of my family's from Appalachia, like really impoverished kind of areas, and it would be neat to actually show them. Or even now I'm thinking about my kids, being able to show them where some of our family are from that they haven't been able to visit. So it's interesting.
So get your headset.
Yeah, it's meta field trip
skip
time.
that trip. Yeah, skip that trip to Rehoboth Beach. Sit home with a headset and melt into the couch.
Right. It's an idea. It's cheaper.
Well, yeah. I think it's better. Believe me, at this point in my life, I think it's better you get it. And you're nowhere near my point in age, but when you get to my age, you can really appreciate getting out and being in a different space and exploring that. I hope to do more of that as the years go on. So, have you got any feel of have you explored at all, different types of headsets, and any idea of what you're drawn to?
Yeah, I mean, we have both of the Meta headsets, and I would agree. There's not a difference between the two that's really noticeable. If you're a gamer, you get into some of the games, there is that kind of depth and detail that you'll lose some of that resolution, but it's not noticeable enough that I think it makes a big difference and save the money. My son is really into a couple of games on there. Gorilla Tag is one that's really popular right now, and it's you essentially run around as a gorilla chasing other people who are gorillas and try to tag them. And there's a ton of movement involved. So
now, is this a multiplayer game?
Yeah.
Where so the other gorillas are actually other people.
They're
in
people,
the environment. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're running around and kind of chasing each other, and there's a lot of movement involved. I mean, he sweats into this thing so much that I sanitizing it actually gives me chills.
Wow.
So it's helpful to have your own headset if you're doing something really physical for these. But again, not huge difference. I've played with the Apple Vision Pro. I had my time to kind of tinker around with it. My neighbor got one and let me kind of experience some of that. But yeah, we've had the couple of Meta headsets for a while now.
Yeah. When I was doing these demonstration with teachers around through COVID. I mean, we had groups that came through COVID, and so what you're able to find are these things that are like masks that kind of you can put over. It leaves your eye space open, but it's specifically meant for virtual headsets. So, and you can buy like 100 of them for $15 or whatever. It's probably cheaper than that. But they're just they're like toilet seat covers for your face. Let's put it that way. You put that thing on, it wraps around your ears, and then you put the headset on top of it, and it reduces the potential of sweat and other sort of things being left on the headset for other people to pick up and use. And I think if you're going to work in a school environment or you're going to do that with a classroom, it's probably safe to just purchase those and have those available if you want to use them. But your son really sweats on this thing, huh?
He does. Yeah.
Now,
and I mean,
is he kept in a particular space when he does it? Okay,
yeah,
because there's fencing that you put up. Yeah.
Yeah, there's kind of a safe bubble you create for yourself. So we cleared out a place in the basement where his room is, a section of the finished basement for him where he's not going to destroy anything. we learned that the hard way. So his desk was in the same room. So was his monitor. And he came upstairs one day and said, Dad, my monitor's broke. And I'm like, what happened? He said, I don't know. So went downstairs and turned it on, and there's an Oculus controller shaped dent in the front of the screen. He said, Dad, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's amazing how kids can be so perceptive, but when they don't want to know or they don't want to report that they know, the answer is I don't know.
The danger is real. So they're a lot of fun. I did want to mention too, I looked at, have not purchased yet, but I do want to try. There's a couple of different third party kind of providers who are doing AR virtual desktops, screens, travel devices. One of them is Xreal. That was one I was looking at to really, creates essentially a giant screen in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So what they advertise is it creates 171 inches of viewable space. So essentially you could hook this up to a computer or another device, treat it as an OLED. I haven't tried these yet. I've looked at some of the reviews and they're just okay.
So you'd bring your laptop and it would just be an external monitor for it, or
Essentially in AR, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a set of glasses that projects the screen in front of you.
Oh, it's a set of glasses. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So Xreal is one of them. There's a few different ones out there. You can even go on Amazon and there's some questionable ones kind of hanging around. So I really want to try one of these as like a virtual desktop. And people, some people say with travel, it's been interesting, but they can be upwards of, $1,500, $2,000.
Yeah, and the thing is, you can get Apple Vision Pro does that in terms of virtual desktop, where it takes your computer and, turns it into whatever size screen you want, and you can work off of that. We talk about that we talk about a lot of this stuff on Vision Profiles podcast that we do on Mondays. So, yeah, for that kind of money, if you wanted a virtual desktop, you might as well buy a Vision Pro because you get the operating system, you get all the apps with it, and in some ways, you probably there will be times you won't even need to take your laptop with you. You can just take care of business with the headset and do the work on the headset. So. And that's a distinct difference between the Meta 3 and the Apple Vision Pro. Meta 3 is not a operating system for productivity.
Mm-hmm.
I turn mine on still every once in a while. And I think they have Mondays as an app on there, which is like a scheduling app, or they have some way of connecting to Mondays, which is a scheduling organization kind of app that's available on Meta. But it doesn't have a robust operating system other than the games you put in it or the apps that you purchase to run on it. And those apps are not kind of work productivity stuff. So.
Yeah, and I was thinking about education in terms of how might this help a student, be more productive or engage with content or immerse themselves in content. And, some of these other options just don't seem as viable for that either. I think it's getting there. And I think to see these kind of third-party developers entering the space is a good thing. It should drive costs down as there's some competition. But, your big players are obviously going to be Apple and Meta.
Google is now threatening to come back into the game. There's been some recent announcement that Google will do some stuff. And the problem, I get really tempted when I see some of these new glasses that come out. ByteDance, who does TikTok, is now talking about working with Pico, Pico, or Pico, I don't know how you pronounce it. And Pico has done AR, VR glasses. And ByteDance is wanting to kind of subcontract that out to Pico, but Pico doesn't have distribution rights in North America. Mm-hmm. So, it might be a cool product. You might be able to get it, but what are you going to do to get it repaired? What are you going to do to get resources on it? And so I've been tempted a couple of times, but it's sort of like, well, once it ships to me, there's not much I can do to fix that because I have it here. And if I don't like it, how do I return it or what do I do? So, yeah, I think there are a lot of people that are getting into the game. Just recently, one of the people who watch the supply chain, Ming Chi Kuo, who does predictions on products that are coming out based on what they see and he sees in the supply chain, has predicted sort of a 4-year layout of what's going to happen to the Vision Pro and what's going to happen next based on this. And when are we going to see those glasses that Apple's talking about? Well, probably not till 2027 or 2028. So it's an interesting field to follow. I just don't know. Some of the smaller market ones won't have the expandability or the connection or functionality that I'm going to need. And I think the big players are the ones where you're going to see applications that developers make for the big players that are going to have maybe more meaning for educational purposes.
Well, and like anything else, I think they're going to focus a lot on wearability, shrinking the technology down, making it lighter, more comfortable to wear and use, more user friendly. It's important, I think, for folks to realize just how early on this technology is.
Yeah.
This is early adoption kind of stuff. So there's tons of places this could go and tons of ways and use cases that just haven't really been broached yet. So it's something to watch.
Having to follow both, because the podcast vision profiles that we do, having to follow both Meta, some of the Samsung stuff, and even the announcements around Google, plus all the Apple stuff, it's pretty clear to me that right now at the beginning, Apple is targeting enterprise because they're looking at creating shared spaces with, people with two headsets can look at, and trainings around how to do repairs on certain types of mechanics. All of that is to sell to the enterprise market, R&D, and also repair and training on repairs is what we're seeing a lot of. We're also seeing some surgeons using it in terms of being able to take, and while they're working on and they're using laparoscopic probes, and they had one on colonoscopies, that the video that is current in the colonoscopy can, instead of being projected on a screen where the doctor has to turn their head to look at it all the time, with a headset on, it can be presented right in front of them. They can also have information about what the patient's current status is on it, and they can also have, X-rays or anything else that they want to pull up on the headset. So I really think Apple is marketing towards the enterprise and productivity field, whereas Meta is more games and entertainment. I'm not familiar with the video platforms that Meta has. I've gone in and they have some spaces where they're running like, custom free or, free movies and running segments of that. And you can sit in a theater with other people. But from a media standpoint, I think Apple's really kind of forged in that area. So you can always buy it with the excuse of needing it for productivity, and then you can use it to watch movies. And it's a pretty incredible experience.
Yes, it is. It's great. YouTube obviously is on Meta,
Yeah.
Prime Video VR, and then an app called Big Screen.
Right. Big Screen is what I'm familiar with. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's definitely going to be kind of this back and forth. I don't think you can get like Netflix directly on your Meta device, but there's ways to get around that too.
Yeah, you can't get it on Apple Vision Pro because Netflix has refused to produce an app that will play that. They want people to go to their site and get it that way. And YouTube doesn't have an app, but there are apps that are portals for YouTube that are on Vision Pro. So
yeah, what we'd like to see is native stuff.
Yeah.
You can get into their kind of built-in web browser and stream Netflix and that kind of thing. But what would be great is to see optimized apps like Prime Video. And I think Disney Plus, I think you can do on Meta too.
Yeah, Disney Plus is very cool. And it's probably one of the media deliverers that's outside of the, Apple ecosphere that's doing it really well, Vision Pro. the theater environments and stuff there that Disney Plus is creating for the Vision Pro as part of their Disney Plus app are really cool, and they're paying attention to the environment. So, is there anything else you want to say about this? Any other questions that you have?
Not really. I mean, unless you have additional advice for listeners on how to get started.
I think you should definitely go, and if you haven't had find a friend who has the device, like Eric's got a neighbor who has Vision Pro. But also, in the case of the Vision Pro, go to an Apple store and ask for a demo.
Mm-hmm.
The demos have changed over the year and a half, almost 2 years that the device has been out. So they're much more integrative and they show much better the aspects of what you can do with the device. They used to basically, when they did the demo, it was all kind of pre-programmed step by step. And the person doing the demo with you couldn't really see what you were seeing. So it made the person was giving verbal directions for what you should look for and what you should do. They now have it so there are iPads that they have set up specifically for the demos of this, where the person managing the demo can see what you're seeing through the screen and can give you better directed advice on what to do next. There are no guest modes in it, so if you have a friend who has the Vision Pro, getting you into their Vision Pro via guest mode is a lot easier to do than probably when you did it, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And so get your hands on one of these to try it and make a determination and do some research before you invest in the process. Again, there is a cost difference between them. Samsung's headset supposedly is coming out. We don't know anything about it. We don't know the operating system. We don't know what functionality it's going to have, but they're projecting that the price point is probably going to be very close to Apple Vision Pro, given the things and components it says it's going to do. So these can be pricey items for that purpose. And I think at this point, Apple is happy with Meta taking the games away from them so they can focus on the device for other things with it. Although Apple has some really cool 3D. I do some 3D puzzles and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just really nice, the kind of things that you can do, kind of logic puzzles and things like that you can do in a 3D environment. So yeah, my advice would be go check it out. And don't be afraid to check it out, and don't be afraid to leap. You're not going to leave your money to anybody anyways. Your kids will, your grandkid. I always like to tell this because I talk to a lot of older groups. Your grandkids will love you anyways, whether you leave them money or not. Get a toy for yourself if you can do that. From an educational standpoint, I think we're still bleeding edge on that. We're waiting for apps to come in our direction, or for us to find creative ways to use the device. With Vision Pro, you can now put objects in a room, shut the thing off, and when the room opens up the next time, those objects are still there. So there's the potential with these kind of object permanence in the environment that you create that we might be able to patch quilt together some learning experiences by putting various instructional pieces on the wall and things like that people can do and interact with. So that's what I've got. And I will try and put some links in the show notes for some of the things that I described, like Replica. And, Eric, if you can send me some stuff in a few minutes, then I'll try and get those links in too and try to remember some stuff so people can go and check some things out with it. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay, I will close. Just a reminder, MacStock Conference occurred last week. That's where I had disappeared for a while. You can go to macstockconference.com. They have digital passes, which will give you all of the presentations in a video and clarity that will be coming out in the next month or so. So if you missed the conference and want the content, you can get all of that content. Just go to macstockconference.com. You can email us at thepodtalknetwork@gmail.com. We kind of follow that email. And so if you have suggestions, advice, questions, stuff that you'd like us to get into, or even if you'd like to be a guest on the Tech Savvy Professor, we'd happy to have you along. You can find out about other projects we're doing. On this topic, I would suggest taking a look at the podtalk.net and particularly Vision Profiles, where we have a whole slew of episodes on AR, VR, and what's going on currently with various AR, VR projects, particularly the Apple Vision Pro headset. But we just did a big one last night on a comparison between the Meta 3 and the Apple Vision Pro. There was an article that was just very extensive that did a side-by-side comparison from it. I might put it in the show notes here, and Eric, I'll send it to you because you would truly appreciate the granularity that the authors got to in talking about the differences between these devices. Often when people are making comparisons or saying, it's so much cheaper, they're comparing, I say this with tongue in cheek, apples and oranges. They're two different devices doing two different things. This story that we talked about on Vision Profiles last night really captures the actual differences between the two. So look for us and look for other projects that we do on the website, thepodtalk.net. Look for us on Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast servers. Our bumper music is from Philip Gross, Rast, from the Free Music Archive. Everything you need to know is at thepodtalk.net. Look for our other shows like Circular Firing Squad. Eric, vacation's over. Come join us again for Circular Firing Squad. And again, I mentioned Vision Profiles is another show that we do. That's it for this episode. Thanks for subscribing to the Tech Savvy Professor.